Property Tribes TV on location at the Academy workshops hosted by the Tenancy Deposit Scheme, and I'm joined by Head of Adjudications, Mike Morgan. So welcome, Mike.
Hello.
Now these workshops, you've been running them for a few weeks now. What was the idea behind them?
Well, we found at TDS over the last 2 years that agents, landlords, tenants who use the scheme perhaps don't get to see enough of us actually out and about telling people what we do, how the schemes work, how tenancy deposit protection works. So the Academy is partly about us getting out to meet our users. It's also about us educating them so that they're able to avoid disputes in the course of tenancies as well.
And it's actually a series of 4 workshops, isn't it, that basically track the life of a tenancy agreement?
Yes, we essentially we decided that we'll take the journey of a deposit from the very beginning, so holding deposit, reference checks, all of the usual things an agent would do, through to tenancy agreement, inventory, protecting their deposit, all the way through to the other end of a tenancy where we look at what might happen if there's a dispute, what sort of evidence people might want to put forwards, and how an adjudicator will consider it and what sort of conclusions they might reach.
It's very much in the sort of headlines as well, because there's been the recent case where the tenant was awarded 4 times the deposit because the landlord missed out one tiny bit of prescribed information. So
yes,
it really is important to be belts and braces with this, isn't it?
It is, and we're seeing now much more awareness because of that court case and also because of the Localism Act last year, much more of an awareness of the areas where people could get it wrong in terms of complying with the legislation. So certainly this first course at TDS Academy is very important in looking at what you need to do right at the beginning to get those things right so you don't have a problem later on.
And of course, I think it's important to point out that the deposit is the tenant's money, and should there be a dispute at the end, it is for the landlord to provide the evidence to get that deposit returned. And I think that's something that often slips through in landlords' minds.
I think that's right. I'm reminded of a letter that I received from a landlord complaining about the outcome of an adjudication, and after the sort of 2 pages of unhappiness made a comment that it was a lot easier before you people stopped us keeping tenants' deposits.
Oh.
And I think that actually perhaps belies in the mindset that some landlords are still of old, believing that the money is there for them to take if they need it. That's not the case now.
Now, I think this slide that we've got behind us is very important, because I'm a firm believer that the outcome of a tenancy is decided at the beginning by setting it up correctly in a robust and healthy way, rather than at the end and waiting for something to go wrong. And really, this is what your workshops are all about, isn't it?
It is. It's looking almost in reverse, if you like, looking at where things go wrong in adjudication. How could you prevent those at the beginning of the tenancy, before you set the tenancy up and when a tenant first moves in? And we're looking at it from both sides, for the benefit of tenants as well as for the benefit of landlords, because they both don't want arguments at the end of the tenancy. They both want to, move in, move out, get on, carry on in life. So this is looking at the things that trip people up at the end of the tenancy, but which are often overlooked at the beginning. And I get a number of agents saying to me, when they lose adjudications or when landlords don't receive the claims they want from deposits, comments like, "Oh, if only I'd known that at the start of the tenancy, I would have done things differently." Well, Academy is about educating all sides of the tenancy agreement right at the outset.
Absolutely. So if you could pick one thing that you hope people will take away from their time in your workshop, what would that be?
I think the most important thing for me is to be clear in your communication with people. And although it's busy, although you want to get through that transaction and get on to the next one, just take time to think, have I covered all the things that might cause me a problem later on? Afterwards is too late.
Now, you recently announced that over 50% of disputes are actually over cleaning issues. So I can imagine that in that case, the inventory is extremely important.
It is. And we see a lot of claims falling down on things for cleaning for fairly simple things, like not telling us how clean the property was at the beginning of the tenancy. Sounds obvious, but it's surprising how many times it gets forgotten. Or another one that we see from time to time is people using abbreviations, GC. What does that mean? Does it mean good and clean, or does it mean good condition? Cleanliness and condition aren't the same things. We also see things like overarching statements in inventory saying everything is in good condition unless otherwise noted. Well, good condition is free of damage. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's clean.
Very good advice, Mike. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to say on behalf of the property community, I think this is tremendous leadership from TDS to actually put on these workshops to educate agents and landlords, because it really is up to us as a community to raise our standards from within, isn't it?
It is, and we're thrilled to be part of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. We've been talking to Mike Morgan, Head of Adjudications at the Tenancy Deposit Scheme, and watch out for one of the workshops coming your way very soon.